Today in this video, I want to go through the upgrade process from 1.7 to 1.7.1. And this is going to be in Survival Game Kit. So if you already are on 1.7, there is a few steps that we need to do. This one will be much shorter than the 1.7 patch, but you will have it say version 1.7 inside of the level. This is the version that this video will fully be working on. If you have 1.7 or anything past that version, you need to not do this video. This will only be specific to upgrading from 1.7 to 1.7.1. So make sure in your level you go and see that this is 1.7. And if it is, I'm going to continue. So I'll be basing this on the hotfix notes from Diffuse Studios. It'll say the 1.7.1 hotfix. If you go to their diffusestudio.com or studios.com, under their support, they have their patch notes, and I'll be following along and doing this 1.7 section of the do-it-yourself guide. So you can go and pull that up on your page and have that up on the side, follow along, maybe pause my video and work on doing some of those things by yourself. This is mostly just bug fixes. It's not adding any new features. So what you'll want to do is get yourself in the project and on the level. And in the content to the left, we're going to select that and then do a search for a particular blueprint. What we want to get is the player inventory component. We filter that. You'll see it. Go ahead and open. And then we need to be in toggle inventory. So in the upper left, just type toggle inventory. And we need to find a section where it says cancel any action. So right here, it says cancel any action on the left, and then there's set player to idle state on the right. We're going to put a node right in between here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag all of this from that idle state to the right. And I'm going to move it over enough to put a variable and a node there. So now what we want to do is get the reference for the inventory HUD. So right click and choose and type inventory HUD, and you'll see the get inventory HUD. Select that, then drag off of that and do a update crafting menu. Select it. We want to put this right here in the logic. So either you can just click and drag one to each side of that, or you could have control clicked, bring that over. So at this point of toggling the inventory, it's going to call that update crafting menu that was placed in 1.7. And that should fix a little issue with something not pulling up correctly. So that's the first fix that was listed on the 1.7.1 nodes. Now let's do a decal not spawn if no emitter. There is a section of the code where we'll want to go into the master weapon. So go and go back to the showcase. And let's search for master weapon. You'll see BP master weapon. Go and open that up. And we'll want to be in the event graph. If you're not in the event graph, double click on the left. And then we're working around some of this code that was added in 1.7. So there's this branch here. Well, this branch, first of all, we need to make sure and set that back to default. I still don't think this is going to ever be called, but I put a note in on Diffuse Studios, and we'll see if that maybe gets changed or cleaned up a little bit, because there's some way to do this without all that extra code. But we do need to do from this false. So let's say it doesn't find an emitter. We want it to continue to go past and try to at least put the decal on there. Currently, it's not doing that. So let's drag from false to this is valid over here. And then let's do a nice little reroute around this. So it's still easy to follow that logic. Double click, and you can set up your or reroute node. Okay. There we go. So we've got it where now if it doesn't have a emitter that it's found, a default emitter or whatever that material type is, if it doesn't find that, what it'll do is we'll continue and try to do a decal. If it can't find a decal, then it skips that altogether. So that takes care of that bug. That should make it so emitters are properly either not showing up and going on, and it continues to do a decal, or it will show the emitter and then show the decal. Now there's an issue with the weight of an item that's been dropped. So this logic is going to be in the player inventory component. So if you already have that open, you can go back to that, or you can do a search here in the main screen under filters for player inventory component. We are already there, but we need to be in the craft section or craft item section. So in the upper left, type craft item. It'll be under functions. Double click that. And then there's logic here for add item to inventory. And below it'll say call crafting error. What we want to do is, first of all, reroute a little bit of this crafted item row name. We're going to have it also go somewhere here to the right. So go and drag this converter. We're going to bring it down so that we can drag something off of it. And what we want to do is make S inventory item, this right here. We no longer want to pull that from the item out. We want to drag this over and replace that ID. And then the count is actually going to be based on this count here. So drag from the break to the left that was near that converter, drag that into count. Then we can delete this initial break here that was before that make. What you want to do is then double click, select it, and kind of reroute those around. So get these where it's easy to read. Exact same thing for both of those lines. Very good. So now we have this converter that's going up. It's doing the normal thing for the add item, but then it's also going over to this make, and the rest of these settings will all stay the same. So you don't have to mess with any of those other things. So this should complete that fix. All right, so that fixes the crafting at full weight, not dropping an item. Now let's move on to fixing a player building component warning that was showing up. This will be in the player building component blueprint. So go ahead and do a quick save all in case you have a crash or anything doesn't work correctly. And then we will do a filter for player building component. Double click and open that. Then go to the upper left and search for select build type. And you'll see that in the event graph area. Double click. We'll go to the very beginning near the inputs. Drag out a little bit to the left because we're going to be doing an is valid check at this point, just to make sure that the reference to the building build master reference is valid. Then we'll continue on with this logic. So do a right click and just do a get build master reference. Select that. Then we'll want to drag off of inputs and do is valid. And it'll be the one with the white question mark. And you can connect up that reference to the build master reference and the input object. Okay, so that will do that check before entering this logic. And that will prevent an error that would have shown up probably at random intervals when for some reason that build master reference wasn't valid. So now let's move on to the next fix. This one's a little bit longer. but there was an issue with new client foliage not being removed. So we need to go into the survival game mode. I'm going to compile and save this blueprint that we have here right now. We'll close this for now. Let's close both those other blueprints. And we need to do a search for the game mode. Now, this is something that in 1.7 I mentioned, also in a fixes video I mentioned. You need to make sure in world settings that you're using this BP underscore survival game mode. There will be some things in this set of fixes that does rely on this, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So first, let's fix something with the resource manager that is an error, and then we'll move on and put some extra logic into this survival game mode. But I just want to make sure before we get through this process that you do have the world settings game mode set to the survival game mode, and then you can have your default character, which should be the mannequin character if you've been following these tutorials, in the default pawn. So in the search, let's search for resource manager, and that handles some of the spawning of items, trees, things like that in the world. We need to be in the event graph, so just double click in the event graph. And then we're going to go through and create a new custom event. Now this custom event, you just right click in a blank area and put custom event. You'll see add custom event. What we need to do is first name it. We're going to name it server update deleted instances. The server update deleted instances. Look at the settings for this on the right. And we're going to make this a actually a run on server. So it'll say executes on server, make it reliable. And then we also click inputs. You need to create a custom input for this. This input you can name transform. And then for the dropdown, for the type, you'll see an orange transform. So go and click that. Now we're going to add some logic to this, but first we need to get the game mode. That's what I was talking about. Make sure your game mode is set before this, because now we're referring to it. So right click and choose get game mode. Drag off of that pin and do cast to BP survival game mode. Select that. We're going to right click and we're going to convert to a pure cast. And so this will make it so that you don't have to drag it up into that logic. We'll execute it here. Then drag off of that and do a get deleted. Let's try it again. So BP survival game mode. Not showing that node. So let's see first if we have that logic in there. Let's make sure that the deleted, and what we can do is open up, because there may be something in here that we haven't created yet. So I'm going to just go I'm going to go and leave resource manager there for a moment. I'm going to open up the survival game mode by either searching for survival game mode, or on the right here, you could click a little search icon. And let's open this up. Now there is a resource that seems to be missing. So there should be a variable that says deleted foliage instances. So when we drag off of this, we're trying to do a get deleted foliage instances, but it's not been created yet. So we need to first go to the survival game mode. On the left where it says variables, click plus. We're going to name a variable deleted foliage instances. Now the type isn't correct. So hit the drop down. And the type is going to be a transform. So it'll be an orange. And we also need to make it an array. So the icon to the right, you click that. and you'll see all of the colored boxes. I changed that, and now we have an array for deleted foliage instance. Compile it and save that. Now we can go back to that resource manager. Let's drag off of the survival game mode and now do a get deleted. And you see there's the deleted foliage instance. From this, we need to do an add. So drag off of that array there and type add. Now we want to connect up these pins. A little more room here so it's easier to see. So drag from that event you created to the add. And then from this transform, you want to drag that into the input for add. So it's going to go server update deleted instances. It's going to add that transform to this list of deleted foliage instances right here at this point. Straighten out these pins a little bit. Very good. So now what we can do is go into the resource manager and under a different area of it, though, to the left-hand side, do replace instance. You see under functions, there's replace instance. Double click that. And then in the section that says store transform of deleted instances, we need to make a call to the event we just created. Let's drag out the whole section of the comment to the left a little bit. And then all the way to that add, I'm going to drag it to the left to add in that node. So make a call to that. Drag from, so you have the add here where it says store transform of deleted instances. And there's a reroute node there. I'm going to drag to the right of that. I'm going to type in server update deleted instances. Put that right in the middle. And we need to refer to instance. So drag off of transform and type get instance, and you'll see transform L. There we go. So now that will be calling and passing that information to the event that we just created. We now need to go to the master resource. So go and go back to showcase. Make sure you're on content. Let's do a filter for master resource. Double click and open that. Make sure that you're in the event graph. You can double click and go back there. There's a section for respawn timer. And if you zoom out this big box to the lower right, we're going to add something at the beginning, right after the event call. What we could do is just select this whole box, drag it to the right a little bit, expand that comment, and then move the event call to the left a little bit. We're going to, we need to refer to this resource mesh. So go ahead and click either the resource mesh and hit Control C and Control V it, or you can just drag from the upper left the resource mesh and put another reference to it. Drag off of that resource mesh and type set visibility. Hit enter. Make a little more room here. Room we need, okay. And then we need to connect these so it's continuing from that event. So now we have it where the event's called, it sets the visibility, leave the visibility unchecked and the propagate to children unchecked. While we're still in this master resource, this is hide resource, so we're setting visibility to invisible pretty much. But when we want to unhide a resource, there's another section here. So we need to go to unhide, which is at the very top. You see here, there's the three things at the very top. Go ahead and zoom in up there. And then see where it's saying set actor hidden in game. We don't want to use that. we're not going to refer to it in that way. We need to delete that node, drag that resource mesh from the upper left, drag off of it and put set visibility. Then connect up the input and the output. Then check the box that says new visibility. So now we're making it visible. So the resource mesh is visible. And you can compile and save that. Next, we'll be going into the survival game mode BP. You may already have this open, but if you don't, go to content. Let's do a search really quick for survival game mode. Open up that controller looking one. We need to create a new event dispatcher. So in the very lower left, click the plus. And for the name, type event or update resources. I think we can do camel case here. So I'm going to put no space and then do a quick test to see what that looks like. Okay, it doesn't put the space in there. So go ahead and put update space resources for the name. The name doesn't matter so much as what we're going to have this do. So we've now created an event dispatcher. And then in the resource manager, so you might have that open still, or go to the search and find resource manager. Let's open that up. We need to create a new custom event called server load. So to do this, let's go to the event graph here. We'll need to go to an open area. It can be below here. It doesn't need to be in that gray area. You can just put a new section below. So right click, put custom event. So not letting me create it here. Oh, I'm not. Okay, I need to be in the event graph that I was already in there. So let's go ahead and click, if you're not on that tab, event graph. And then you can do it once again in a fresh area here. It doesn't need to be next to anything else. So in here, let's try it again. Right click, custom event. There we go. And this one we'll call server load resources on join. We're going to be adding an input to this. First of all, the input, hit plus, and it will be player controller. Hit the drop down. Search for player controller and select that. And then do one more input. And we need to do a transform for this input. So just call it transforms. Hit the drop down, choose transform. And then this is going to be an array. So click the little icon to the right of it and click the colored boxes. So now we've created this custom event. We do need to have it actually execute on the server though. So this is the server load resources on join. So select that event, hit the drop down for the replication and choose run on server. And also check the reliable box. From the server call, we're going to be calling a multicast. Of course, this doesn't exist yet. But what we do need to do is to create it. And we'll do another custom event below this. So right click and do custom event. Call this one multicast. Load resources on join. For this one, under the replicate, you need to hit the drop down and do multicast. You need to have something similar to before where we have a player controller. So hit, and do make sure it's reliable. Do player controller, hit the plus. Call this one player controller. The type, the drop down, and choose player controller. We don't want it to be an array. So hit the icon to the right and just choose single variable. Then hit plus again. And we'll also create a transforms. For the type, hit the drop down, choose transform. And this one will be icon and hit array. So you have something very similar, all the same outputs as the previously created server load. Now what we can do is call this multicast that we just made. So go ahead and hit compile really quick. Then drag off this player controller and choose multicast. And you'll see multicast load resources on join. Put that to the right, connect up the transforms. And what that is doing is calling to the server saying, hey server, I want to do a multicast. It tells the server to do the multicast, and then that starts executing this event right here. From this, we need to see if this is a locally controlled player. So from the multicast, drag off of that player controller and type is local player controller. So not is local controller, do is local player controller. Then we'll be doing a branch based off this information. So drag off the multicast and do a branch. Then just connect this return value to the condition there. So it's saying, hey, is this a locally controlled player? Make sure it's not doing it for another player. If it is, let's do something. And we want to do something with this array that we've passed through. So go to true and do a for each loop. So you drag off of true, do for each loop. Then we want to connect that transforms to the array in that for each loop. So drag that over there. And you can double click on the lines and reroute that around. Now it's going to go through and do a loop based on all of the items that are listed in that. So from this, let's first break this array. So drag off of the array element and to break transform. And then from the location, drag off, and we're going to do a minus, vector minus vector. In the Z portion, type in 30. And then we're going to do a trace. So what we want to do is detect in this trace. So first of all, drag off of the loop body and do a multi-box trace by channel. The start will be the location. So the break transforms location, go and drag that up to that start. Bring this out a little bit. There we go. And then the end location will be this 30. So it's going to do pretty much from a length of 30, it's going to try to detect something. These other settings, ignore self is correct. All these others can be left other than the half size. We need to change those to 10, 10, and 10. So from this, let's go ahead and continue to do a for each loop with the array of items that it's found during this trace. So drag off and do for each loop with break. But we want it to where if it finds something, this can then break. And we are going to connect up this array from the out hits to the array here. Then what we'll do is drag off of this loop body and we're going to cast it. But first we need to get the some information from this array element. So drag off of that and do a break hit result. From this, we need to do the hit component because that's what we're going to be casting to based on this hit component. So under hit component, drag off and search for cast to BP master resource. Now we can connect that loop body to this. And as that component, we're going to drag off and we're going to do remove instance. So remove instance, not remove instances. And to know what instance, so the one that it found, we need to drag from the hit item to that index. And what we're accomplishing by this is that it's going to search this array. And then with the first one that it finds, so it's going to stop once it's finds something. So it's going to stop once it's found something and remove that instance. So this should take care of this section, but we do have a little bit more that we'll need to add in the game mode now. So go ahead and save this, compile it, make sure we have references to all of those events we just added. And then go to the survival game mode. You should have it still open. You can also do a search like this, find it, and open it. We have currently 2 sections to the survival game mode. We're going to add a third. So to do that, let's add a sequence. So you then have a then 2. Drag down from that then 2 to below the other. And do a get all actors of class. Now in this, we need to do a search for master resources, or resource masters. So BP resource manager. So this will find the resource manager that's in the level. And what we want to do is see how many there are. So drag off of that and let's do a length. So that'll tell you how many are in the array. So if you find 1, there's 1. If you find 5, there's 5 in the array. It will say, okay, there is something in there. And we need to verify that it's more than 0. So do a greater than, and it's integer greater than 0, or so integer greater than integer. Leave that at 0. That's just going to say that there is something in the list. Now we need to do a branch based off this. So drag off of the output node and do branch. And then use that greater than 0 as the condition. Now we need to use this, this array that we had. So first what we'll do is drag off of the out actors and do a get. And then get a copy. You can reroute this around a little bit. From this get, so we're getting the first instance of it. Drag off and do a server load resources on join. This will be connecting to the true option. I need to move this down a little bit. There we go. And then we need to fill in these variables here. So we have our new connected player that we referred to up above, because we're setting that at the beginning of this. Go ahead and connect that up. So on the left-hand side, you can drag new connected player. And then the deleted foliage instances, you can drag and connect that to transforms. So it should look something like this. So now we need to do an event dispatcher. To do this, we need to make another, so let's add another pin, the sequence. And from this, drag down, zoom out so you can see, drag down below the rest of those. We need to do a call update resources. So let's see if this works. That should be what we want. The call update resources. You could also right click, call update resources there. Or you could see here where it says update resources. You could drag it out there and hit call. But we have the exact same node by doing either one of those. So however you choose to do it, those are just different ways to be able to find the same thing. So now we are going to go through and add some logic to this call. So first of all, we need to go into the master resources BP. You might already have it open if you haven't closed it. Of course, you can go to content, search for master resource. Open this up, and we need to be in the event graph. And then we need to find begin play. So on the left here, you look, I don't see a begin play. So we have master resource, event graph, and then begin play, but there's nothing actually being called. So let's go ahead and create the begin play, and let's add to it. So right click and do begin play. So event begin play. See that it's added one. Drag off of that and do switch as authority. So if it's able to do this, we're now going to get the game mode. So right click and get game mode. Then from here, drag off of the return value and do cast to BP survival game mode. And then connect that authority to it. So now we're going to call that that event. So we're going to do a bind to it. So drag off of there and do bind event to update resources. What this does is it will run some code anytime you call this. So it's at the beginning, it's creating this this event, this bind, and it's just going to sit here. It's not actually going to execute right away, but it allows us to call and have some code run whenever we want it to run. We can just make a call and it finds this bind, and then it's going to do a custom event that we're about to create. So right click and let's create a custom event. We'll call this one update resources. Drag from that event down to the little pin that's on the upper right of that new event we just created. So this is saying, hey, this is what we're going to call. From that, we need to get the resources. So do get resources. And you'll see under items, a variable for that. From there, we want to make sure that there's actually more than one. So this is the count of the resources. Do greater than. The greater than integer. On this, we're going to make sure it's greater than 0, which just means that there is something. There's one or more in the whole list. We're going to do a branch. So drag that off of update resources. And then connect the greater than 0 to that condition. If it's true, we need to get a reference to this resource mesh. So in the upper left, drag that resource mesh onto the screen. Now you have a reference to it. And then drag off of that to set collision profile name. We're going to connect that to true. And then what we want to do is refer to from that collision profile name. This is a name variable here. We're going to drag off of that and do get collision profile. And you'll see that it's also a named variable. Now on false, we want to use some of this similar type of logic, but a different name. So let's control click. So click and then control click the resource mesh and the set collision profile name. Control C and then Control V will have them right near each other. From false, go and drag that into that second set collision profile name. And then in the box, rather than having a variable tell it what it's going to say, we're going to say no collision. So it's no collision, no spaces, And then you can, if you would like, either do that, or what I'll do a little reroute node here, clean that up. There we go. Okay, so now we have it to where the begin play, it creates that bind whenever we refer to it. Currently, we don't have anything referring to it. What we'll do is actually create some of those so that we can see where it happens. So to do this, we need to go to the same area, but just scroll down a little bit. We need to do a multicast, and we need to do a few calls after this. So first, what we'll do is just add some things right after these two set collisions. But we need to create the events that it's going to call first. So below that, right click and do custom event. Let's call the first one multicast set no collision. We're going to create another one, custom event. We're going to name that second one multicast set collision. So now we have two of those, but they both need to be execute on all. So select the first one and hit multicast, check reliable. Do the same thing for the second one, drop down multicast, check reliable. And then we need to drag off of the first one's output and do a set collision profile name. And it automatically will put that resource mesh reference. The name of that one, when it says no collision, it's going to be the one we created before, no collision. So it'll be the same name. The second one, let's go ahead and copy these two, Control C, Control V, and put it in a very similar place, connect it up. But we need to have that reference to the collision profile. So you can click that collision profile to the lower left, drag it up, and connect it to that name node. Very good. So now we have two. So you want to compile this so that it realizes these are here. I am getting an error. We'll check that out here in just a second to see why that might be happening. But first, let's go ahead and finish this up and then see if it's still doing it. So on this first one where it says true for greater than 0 resources on set collision profile name, the one that has the variable going into it, we're going to drag off and search for multicast set collision. Go and select that. And then the second one where it doesn't, it has the text entered as no collision, search for multicast no collision. Do a quick compile, save. I'm also going to do a compile and save on the survival game mode, and then we'll do a compile back here. Let's see. There, that error went away. It's just because I didn't compile the survival game mode for this call. So now what it is doing is we have our call in the on post login. So when somebody logs in, it does a call update resources. That was in this event, allowing it to then come here and run this. So it's running it and it's setting collision or no collision on those various items. So that should take care of the fixed new client not being removed. I can go and close all of that information. And let's move on. We've got two more fixes here. First of all, one of them is a death bag desync. So let's close all these that we've done. Let's save them and close so that we're in a fresh page. Do a save all. And then let's do a search. We're going to open up the player inventory component. So content and then player inventory of that component. Open that up. We want to be in the spawn death bag. So on the upper left, let's search for spawn death bag. And we want to change of how this is actually working, because this get actor location and then spawn actor, the death bag there, isn't quite correct. So the master character, we don't want to base it off of just that. We're going to drag off of that master character, so you can move it to the left a little bit and do get mesh. It'll be all the way at the bottom under character, get mesh. And then we can actually delete this get actor location, because that's not quite what we want to do. We want to drag off of mesh now and get world location. Very similar looking node, just a little bit different text. And then drag that return value into the spawn transform location. The rest of these settings, they can stay the same. One thing we will need to do is to go to the loop bag component and untick simulate physics. We need to go to the showcase content. And let's search for dead player bag. Open that up. Select loop bag here to the left. And then untick simulate physics. It's on the right hand side under physics. So it's unchecked. Compile and save that. And that should correct the issue with the death bag. Now let's go through and we want to fix some starting items on respawn. To do this, go ahead and close that death bag. And we're going to go to content, go back to search, and we want to be in the player inventory component. I'm already up here, but just do a search for player inventory component. You'll see it there. We want to go to the load save game section. To find that, on the upper left, search for load save game. Double click that under saving. Then go to the very beginning. You'll see here it has the load save game and then get all actors of class. Drag that to the left. And then let's go ahead and we need to do some references here really quick. We need to do a branch off of this load save game. Off of condition, let's drag respawn. We're doing get respawn. If it's respawn, we want to do something different. If it's not respawn, go ahead and drag that true to false. We want the logic to continue as normal from false to continue there. But we want to now drag from true and we want to set a variable. So set save loaded. So you'll have a variable here. Check that. It will or set that and then leave it unchecked. And then drag from that set and do client loaded save. Compile and save that. And that should fix the starting items on respawn. So if you respawn true, save loaded, no. If you did not respawn, then it's going to continue with this logic up here. So that should be the 1.7.1 set of fixes. If you ran into anything that doesn't seem right, let me know. We can leave a comment. Of course, you're always welcome to join the Discord. And you can leave comments there, talk to other game developers. A lot of people hanging out The final thing that you probably want to do is change your version number. So now that we're at 1.71, we want to go through and update the name here. So in the level, come back here to where it says Survival Game Kit, select the version. Under details, just add a 0.1. So now our working version is 1.71. And all future updates until I do 1.72 will be based on this version. Let's do a quick play. Make sure we get no errors. Okay. Everything seems to be working. Okay, so this is 1.71. If you have any issues with it, feel free to let me know. But I will see you guys in the next video.